Welcome back to GodMade, where we talk about Christian creativity and helping you succeed in the Christian creative space. Today we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things, including my system of how I make 6 figures a year doing this, being a content creator. And there's a lot of interesting stuff we're going to talk about today.
Let's start with yours.
Okay.
Because yours is really interesting. I can't wait to dive in.
Teach us your ways.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's give a little bit of background. So I've been a creator for 5 years. Really longer than that. I've been, in videography and doing different things like that for a long time, but really I've been a content creator for 5 years, which means basically I've been focused on YouTube. First of all, the Snipe Life was our first channel, where we originally wanted it to be kind of like a lifestyle channel, which is really interesting because I think honestly God is moving us almost full circle to that, where it might become a lifestyle channel again. But the first year that we were on YouTube, we really tried to do everything. So we were like cooking, we were like building computers, like we were doing everything under the sun to just try to figure out what we like to do, what would work,
great.
And everything there.
Yeah.
Eventually we discovered, okay, we really want to be focused on Christian creativity and what that looks like. And so we started doing videos about cameras and how to use them and how to build your channel, similar to what we're talking about here, which is really interesting as well. And so when we got to about a year, 10 months into it, we only had 180 subscribers, and we were trying really hard to figure out, like, hey, what do we do, and what does this look like? Then at that exact time, right at the beginning of 2021, season 2 of The Chosen was about to air. And so we were like, okay, well, this is a pretty good, we loved season 1. It was a great show. It was before we had started YouTube, so we didn't talk about it or anything. But season 2 is coming out. Let's see what's happening here and let's see what we can do, And so we jumped in on season 2 of The Chosen, very first episode, and immediately it took off like nothing else on our channel had ever taken off before. We had one other video where we talked about Israel that got over 1,000 views, but besides that, we had never had anything that did over 1,000 views. And so this first video started going 1,000 views, 2,000 views, 10,000 views, and we were like, what is happening here?
Right.
And immediately got, over 1,000 subscribers, got over our watch time hours, got monetized on YouTube. And so we were really excited for that, right? So that was our first channel, The Snipe Life. And we continued doing that for another year. And then we moved to Nashville. I did another year. So we did that channel for about 3.5 years. And then I started 2 years ago a channel that more specifically focused in on biblical media. And so that is The Chosen Sleuth, which is the channel that I have now. So with that channel, we did this a little bit with the Snipe Life, but with The Chosen Sleuth specifically, we had some really specific kind of systems in place now that really help us to make what we make, right?
But the cool thing about what your story, in my opinion, is that you experimented and you kept persisting, you kept working on it. And if it wasn't for all of the experiments, the failures, the feedback that you got that this wasn't quite working or resonating with people, or at least with the algorithm, then it just took all of that kind of that
question for you.
Story.
So when you guys did the Chosen episode, did you have a hunch that this might take off because it's like it's a timely thing, it's very specific?
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely a strategic move,
Okay, cool.
But it was also like God was lining everything up that we wanted. Because in the Snipe Life, we had been talking about Christian creativity. We even had other Christian YouTubers that we were like bringing on and like having them like tell their stories and stuff, and trying to create a community, and it just wasn't working in the algorithm, and so we were just trying everything that we possibly could, right? And so we were like, here, everything converged. Like I could talk about cinematography, I could talk about storytelling, I could talk about Christian creativity, and it's all within the realm of something that was then being a pull for that, right? It had an audience already, and so for us to talk about The Chosen, which we already liked and authentically liked, because I run into a lot of creators today that they'll talk about The Chosen, but they don't even watch the show.
Right.
You know, like there's a lot of people that create content around The Chosen or around biblical media, but they don't even like it themselves. Like
that's terrible. I can't even imagine that. That'd be awful. Yeah.
Well, and I get it though. Like I understand where they're coming from. Like they found something that worked and they just kept on going with it. Same as us, but we were just in a lucky spot where it's like everything converged for us.
Yeah.
And it was like, we were never going to make things that we didn't care about.
Right.
So when something converged for us, it just meant that God was moving in that direction, and we could move there with Him. And so, anyway, I created the Chosen Sleuth 2 years ago because, for me, our channel was kind of getting a little bit too split, right? So we were talking about Israel, we were talking about biblical things, so we were doing like almost like Bible studies. But then on top of that, we were talking about the Chosen. We were trying to talk about some of these other biblical projects that didn't really exist yet. You know, there's like a lot of different things that we were trying to do on our channel because we found there was so much downtime during the year with just the Chosen that it became very difficult. But I knew that if I started a new channel and really hyper focus on biblical media, that I could make it work, right? And so that was the idea there. But to go to the systems, which I think is really what's valuable for you guys, the system that I had in place is I think really, really interesting. And I stole it from a couple of different people. Have you ever heard of Meet Kevin? Have you ever heard of him?
Yes.
So Meet Kevin, as well as Ruslan. Ruslan does basically the same system as Meet Kevin. I think he kind of stole it from him during 2020. But essentially, it's a live stream kind of melded model between live streaming and YouTube videos. So you live stream, you make a bunch of videos, and then you're able to put out a bunch of videos at different times, whenever you want, right? Ludwig is another one. I don't know if you guys know Ludwig at all.
Never heard of
He's
him.
a big Twitch streamer. So in the video game world, there's a meme that people call him Ludwig from video games. Like some people might get that out in the world. I don't know, but he's a huge streamer. At one time, he was the biggest streamer on Twitch through a big subathon that he did. That's how he kind of became famous. But he's run a bunch of different companies, done a bunch of different stuff. But he came up with this idea of Twitch streaming that was like, when you Twitch stream, you should absolutely have like set videos that you're doing within that stream, so that it's easily clippable. You can, bring them to where you want them to be. So in actuality, I think I'm probably more of a live streamer than I am a YouTuber, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And so I live stream one time a week, for 3 or 4 hours, and that turns into content, all throughout my week. So that turns into sometimes 3, sometimes 5, sometimes 8 pieces of content that I can, split up and put into whatever I want that to be. Heavily researched beforehand, heavily planned out beforehand, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've got sometimes PowerPoint slides or different verses or different things that I'm going through in order to make that content what it is, right? And so that's how it kind of works for me personally. So the system that I have, and I love this quote from Tim Ferriss's, is it Tim Ferriss?
What's the book?
It's Atomic Habits?
No, that's James Clear.
Yes, James Clear. From Atomic Habits, though. The quote that says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, right? So my system is every single week, I go live at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, right? People know that. Every single week I go live. In that live, I have a minimum of 4 videos that I'm planning on, right? Sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 3, sometimes like I try to make it at least 4, right? Sometimes what will happen is a segment will go wrong, and I'm like, I just don't really like that, right? so I'll kind of move on.
How does it go wrong?
So like sometimes I'll either mess up or I'll think in the middle of it like, maybe I have this wrong. Like maybe I'm not right about this, or maybe I'll be like, I just don't think this is a good video.
Right.
And so I'll take that segment out and I just won't use it. Most of the time that's not the case though, because I've thought a lot about these segments beforehand usually, and spent several hours planning them. Right. And so for me, that is my system. I live stream for 3 or 4 hours. I have 4 to 8 segments that I go through, and I react to them live with my audience. So whether it's me reacting to a YouTube video, or me having a planned out teaching moment that I want to talk about, or talking about this very specific chosen moment that I want to expound on, that's my system there. And so how I'm able to use that is I take the live streams down from YouTube, so they no longer exist on YouTube after I'm done. Basically, the minute that I'm done with them, you cannot access them unless you are a YouTube member or part of my Patreon.
Got it.
And this is instrumental because there's a lot of the moments within the live stream that are just natural with my community, right? I'm answering questions, I'm talking with people, I'm thanking people, I'm talking through different things that I don't want to be in a normal video, right? And so all of these kind of deeper community moments, if you are part of my community and you want to be a part of those, then Patreon's the best place, one, to support me, which a lot of them want to do, and then two, it's the best place to get all of this extra content, right? So you get the full 3 or 4 hour live stream that you can watch anytime you want throughout the week with no ads on it, right? They can do whatever they want. They don't have to go back to the YouTube channel if they don't want to watch them there. They just have a lot more freedom to do whatever they want to do within the system, right? And so a lot of them find that very, very valuable. And so for me, it allows me to bring in Patreon revenue, bring in YouTube memberships revenue, but then on top of that, I put out these videos almost daily on the channel so that I have, 5 pieces of content throughout the week, 6 pieces of content throughout the week that I can put out, and it really helps to have those things going.
Does that drive then people to the live streams as well? Just taking a clip of that live stream and then putting it out there later on throughout the week?
Yeah, I would say 85% of people don't realize that it's a live stream. Because I make it exactly like a YouTube video.
So you just switch during the live stream. You're like, all right, now I'm going to switch topics.
Yep.
And then you literally will start another pre-planned video. You're really good at like giving teasers about what we're going to be talking about. You just can come up with this stuff.
And that's just a practice. It's a practice thing.
Yeah, you've gotten really good at it.
Do the reps.
Yeah, because I started to understand, like, if I'm going to plan these things out, I'm not going to have a script of an intro for everything. But in my brain, I have bullet points of like, okay, this is the most important topic from this thing. Right? So if I'm talking about, for example, like The Chosen Season 6, there's been a lot of different leaks, right? One of my favorite leaks that I got for The Chosen Season 6 was a taxi driver drove someone up to set, and his dash cam caught Jonathan Rumi in full costume in Italy, right? So like this random taxi that I got the images from, right, from this dash cam, just happened to have Jonathan Rumi walking by in full crucifixion costuming, right?
Wow.
And so one of my favorite leaks. But if I'm talking about that, like I would open up the video and be like this is how I do it. So if I'm facing this camera and I'm doing my live stream, I'd be like, okay, guys, next we're going to go into this topic here. We're going to talk about, on set on Italy. It's going to be awesome. But real quick, let's get into it. All right. The Chosen Season 6 has been amazing so far, but this week we have an insane leak from Italy. In fact, there was a taxi driver who, let's just get into it. Here we go. And we'll just like kind of go into it that way, right? And that's how I'll do it. Is I'll just be talking to chat. I've got a big TV up in the top right corner of my setup over here. And I just look at chat and I talk with them the whole time, but then I switch out of chat mode or live stream mode and go into video mode. Yeah. And they all understand the culture.
And it's fun for them because it feels behind the scenes. They're getting a behind the scenes look.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like they're getting to see how the food is made. It's being at hibachi, I guess,
Right. I listen to every morning, Scott Adams does a Real Coffee with Scott Adams, and lately his cats have just been coming on the set in front of the camera, and he just includes them in, and it's just like really great to kind of see behind the scenes, and you really just get to know that person pretty authentically. So I love it. You're batching as well, which I think is brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you can really work towards that Sunday. That Sunday you're planning, you've got, that's crazy. Like you have the whole week to get ready. It's like you're doing a Sunday sermon.
Yeah, 100%. And it gives me a lot of flexibility because it allows me during the week to plan whatever I need to plan.
Yeah.
How I edit them is very quick. It takes me, I would say like a maximum an hour, and if something went wrong, maybe a few hours, but generally that doesn't happen because my systems are well oiled at this point, right? Even the system we're using here, right? Like it's very much similar to something like this where we're doing this in the most streamlined, efficient way possible so that it's easy for us to put out content, right? And if you don't have a system like that, that's where I think a lot of people quit YouTube. But that's another subject maybe for another time. But in terms of revenue and things that I make, here's how it splits up for me. So for me, it's probably like 50 to 60% AdSense, We talked about this a little bit in a previous video, but 50 to 60% AdSense, probably 30 to 40% Patreon, and then sponsorships and other things kind of fill up that other end. Maybe it's a little bit different than that, but that's about where it ends up for me for the pie chart here.
Are you going to give us some hard numbers?
Yeah,
later?
so I will. So as an extra, if you guys want to join and see some stuff on the site at GodMadeCreators.com, you guys can go over there and we'll do an extra where I show you all of my numbers, exactly how much I make, where all that comes from. I'll show you everything in there because I want you guys to have transparency of like what you can expect as a Christian creator and as a small Christian creator too, because I'm not a massive creator, right? I don't have a channel with over 100,000 subscribers. My biggest channel right now is right around 53,000. And so like that's where I'm sitting, you know, but I've been full-time since 11,000 subscribers and all my channels together, it does round up to around 100,000. But you know, the main channel that I'm working on right now, The Chosen Sleuth, is my main driver for all of that. Probably 95% of our income comes from that business there. And so, at least through the YouTube income. And so, yeah, I'd love to get into that detail. It's going to be a lot of fun. But in terms of income and stuff, I'll say this too, because people get really weird with numbers and stuff, especially in the Christian world.
Yeah.
And when I say something like 6 figures, people get afraid of that, right? And they're like, well, what does that mean? Like, are you giving half of that to a homeless shelter? You know, like this is a business, and so I pay a lot of taxes on that money, right? Yeah. And so there's a lot of taxes that are taken out of that. This is not the money that goes into my personal bank account. This is my business that's making the money, and a lot of that goes into things like travel. A lot of that goes into things like equipment, like we talked about before. The equipment we're using here, the equipment that's in this room currently, is probably close to $50,000 of equipment.
That's
right?
wild.
With the lights, the cameras. Like all the computers that I have in here, my computer alone is probably a $3,000 or so computer, right? Because I need it to edit 4K video and do all the stuff that I'm doing. There's like one dock over there that's worth like $500. So it's like, it's the most expensive, crazy, like annoying things that you have to have in order to have systems that are like this. But all of that to say, this is a great system, I think, for specific areas. I don't think it works for everybody. And if you guys have any questions that you feel like you want to dig deeper into,
well, I do just want to comment on the money side of it. I appreciate you saying that, but honestly, like I think that's kind of a hang up that we as Christians seem to have when it comes to money, because I think people have been wounded by money or have seen people in the past take advantage of money and asking for money and all of that. I think there's a maybe another episode someday about just stewardship and how important it is for that God says to us how to steward our resources, and there's nothing wrong with stewarding your resources well and receiving a financial compensation for your work, especially the type of work you're talking about, entertainment and biblical media. Those, you don't think those biblical media products and content costs money? It costs millions of dollars to produce that stuff.
Right.
So, I don't think there needs to be an apology for it really necessarily, or a need to explain it. But it is really interesting that you're willing to open the books, so to speak, and just share the numbers, because I think that's going to be a really valuable feature for us to just, I'm always curious. You're going to probably answer questions that I have had for a long time, just how you do it. I'm curious about, I guess my also a question I have is about technology. Yeah. And just how you got to, like when you started, what did you start with? Technology-wise, like, because you obviously didn't spend $50,000 to make this happen from day one. Yeah, so for me, I became a videographer in 2017. So I bought this camera, actually. This exact camera that we're looking at through right here is the first camera I ever bought for videography and to do different things like that. I bought this. It's a cheaper camera. You can probably buy it today for like
probably 300 or under on eBay or something like that. There's a lot of used ones that are in the market now. It's a Lumix G7 if you're interested.
Okay, yeah.
But it's a cheaper camera. It's an entry-level camera that I just, I used for a long time to do photography, to do videography. I used it for a lot of real estate shoots, things like that, where I would go in and people that real estate agents that I knew or whatever else, I would use it for marketing for them and different things like that. So I used it because I was a pastor. I needed some side income because I was getting paid at the time. 2017, I wasn't even full time. Even though I had been in ministry for at that time probably almost 6 years, I still wasn't full time because they couldn't afford to pay me full time.
Right.
So I was probably making somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 a year, maybe a little bit more, but probably not much. So yeah, we needed something on the side, right? So I started doing videography. So that's where it started. Mm-hmm. And so I had one camera. But when we started our YouTube channel, we started it with that camera, and that's the only camera we had for a long time. And then eventually we moved to this camera, Matt's camera. GH5 is the next camera I got, and that one I used again for
another Lumix.
Yeah, videography. I stayed in the same family just because it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And then I moved to this camera just a few years ago, and then I moved to this camera last year. Okay. The camera that I'm on right now. So
you saved your best camera for yourself?
Well, it's just easiest because I don't have to get. This is the only good one. This is the only one with good autofocus. Oh, okay. So the rest of them I can get focus on you guys, and then I can sit down and not have to worry about it. That's a really big problem with Lumix. I would love to do a full, again, another extra online. I would love to do a full deep dive of like our systems and stuff. Did we lose Eric there? No, I think we're good.
Something happened. There was some movement.
Oh, I think I hit the
it's all good. You hit the carpet, but it's all good. I need to get that. I need to get something to hold that down.
Oh, we have a carpet issue here. Okay.
But I'll go through everything. I'd love to go through the whole system and show you guys like all the details of how we're doing this, how we're switching the cameras, how we're doing all this, because it is just the three of us. We don't have a producer right now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy what you're doing right now.
And so it should be a lot of fun. But another extra that we could have online would be great.
Well, something too I think we should share is that if you're just in the beginning, you got a seed of an idea, and you're going, oh my goodness, $10,000, $40,000 worth of equipment. You don't have to do that right away. Everybody, this phone in your pocket is 4K. Like at the end of the day, especially as a Christian content creator, it's what you say, it's your ideas, it's when you're speaking out. That's going to be most important. Like get a $50 microphone for your phone, make sure it sounds good, and just go for it. You know, and do kind of the proof of concept and see if whatever your content is starts to resonate, and then you start making a little bit of money, or you save up a little, get a camera. Like here we're sitting in this amazing studio with all these cameras, but you started with one camera, and so I'd
love to create like a starter pack, like a simple thing that anyone can start with, like you just said. Okay, which camera do I need? That's the thing I get when I'm coaching people on podcasting. The first question, most of the questions are technical questions, like how do you do this kind of stuff?
Right.
So that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I think by the time this comes up, we could definitely do some sort of Amazon shop or something like that, where we could just give them some ideas. Yeah. There's some amazing cameras that were just announced in the last couple of weeks that are very budget friendly and look insane. So yeah, there's definitely.
I love the way you talk. By the way, too, you're always like amazing, like that's insane, makes insane. Like it's really addicting. I can see why people love watching your lives.
Some people hate it, man.
Really?
I get comments all the time about how people hate my laugh and like I have very specific. I've come to terms with it because it's just the way that I am.
No, you got.
But I have very specific like vocal mannerisms and things that I say a lot. Like I'll say for sure a lot, and not everybody's going to be super.
But your voice is great for podcasting too, because it's not shrilly in any way. It's just nice, and it's got a nice tone to it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm full of compliments for you guys today.
Anyway,
get some too, Matt.
But if you got a shrill voice, own it. You know, like everybody's going to have their own unique angle and take, and I think
sure.
Like again, as a Christian creator, like God created you that way, and go do it. You know, and it's not good. I mean, we were just talking. We got like one of our first negative comments on social media, and it's like, great. That means someone's seeing it and they've got an opinion. I'd rather put something out that is a little polarizing than something that's just vanilla. You know, like I want people to have a good or bad reaction. I mean, hopefully more pluses and thumbs and subscribes and all that good stuff.
I want Neapolitan. Get it all in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't even know what that means.
But if you guys have any questions, like I said, we'll go deep dive into the comments and everything else. If you want to join our membership, there's going to be a bunch of extras there. And of course, you'll have direct access to us there as well. Yeah. But if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. We'll answer them. I know all of us are really excited to get to the comments and just talk to you guys. So, but anyway, my system, live streaming, break that into clips, make sure that you have a plan and you're researched and you're good to go. I think that's an amazing way to create content. It's not for everybody. I think it would be very hard to do, for example, for like a cooking channel. Mm-hmm. I think cooking over a live stream and then breaking it into clips would be hard, but I think it's possible. Something like a podcast, I think it's the perfect way to do it. It's just to live stream, record. You could have sessions with your community. It builds that community as well as giving you content for the future. And so I think it's really, really, really good for specific types of channels. If you can do it, I would do it that way for sure. I think it's just a great system. And there's a lot of tools that you can use in order to get there, which is another topic that we'll do in the future of how to do these things more practically. And
just getting that immediate feedback from your community also makes that live stream so 100%, valuable.
Yeah. So good. All right, you guys want to jump into another?
My topic, I think, kind of piggybacks off yours, but you're talking about Ruslan and his systems. We got to recently meet Ruslan. He was doing a live speaking event here in the Nashville area. And so Brandon and I went to that and got to meet him.
Some pictures here.
Yeah, we'll throw some pictures of us hanging with Mr. Ruslan KD. And one of the things that he said that really I appreciated was, and I think he was talking in relation to content creation. So there was like this before the event, people were asking questions about his journey of becoming a full-time YouTube content creator. And he's got a new book out about godly ambition, and which is a whole nother topic that we should probably talk about. But the quote that he said was, as a creator, and this is all walks of life, in all careers, is we control the inputs, God controls the outputs. Meaning, you've got your systems, you're putting your time in, you're not just sitting here going, okay, God, make my channel grow. Help me reach a lot of people for your kingdom, but then you're not doing the work, researching cameras, coming up with a system that's sustainable and all that. And so I just love that reminder of, as a creator, we need, and to be excellent, we need to put in the work. But then once we put in the work, who this content goes out to, is dependent on God and algorithm. Like there's elements of like, all right, we don't need to worry about it. We put our best foot forward. And so, and I've got a quote here that I finally found the attribution to it, and it kind of falls in line with that. And then this is more of like coming back to a faith component. But this was by St. Augustine of Hippo, and he said, pray as though everything depended on God, work as though everything depended on you. Yeah. And I just love that quote because I think nothing's more frustrating when you meet a Christian who is lazy and not pursuing excellence. And I think but I understand there's a fine line there of wanting to be in control of it all, and I'm going to make this channel, this podcast successful. You need to know when your time is done and when you go, okay, God, open hands, do with it what you want.
Right.
So,
yeah. That's great. I love that quote, and you're absolutely right. It's like that, not just with your podcast, with YouTube channels, with making music, making any kind of art or creativity. You do need to rest, and even anything, sports, life is like this. You've got to rest. The outcome is something you do not control.
Yeah.
You do not control who sees it. You do not control the response to it. You can only control what you make and how you what you put in. Yeah. I love that. And honestly, that will get rid of a lot of my anxiety if I remember that. Whatever I'm putting my hands to. So that's a great. I love what Ruslan is all about. It's really cool.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely a balance because, like, we need to have faith that God will lead us in the right direction as long as we're obedient and we're walking in that 100%. But like God is not he didn't give us a brain for no reason, right? Like there's when we're moving in the way that he wants us to move, like we still have to be strategic, we still have to be excellent, like you're saying. And so like every single time we do a podcast, we want to be improving, we want to do better and better and better, figure out our systems, right? And get in the place where we need to be. But it will absolutely make you go insane if you're focused on, like we talked about in one of the first episodes, the analytics and things, right? Like if we focus entirely on like number not going up, right? Like that feeling is going to kill you, you know? And it's going to put you in a place of blaming others as well, which is like, because you can only control the inputs, but you want to control the outputs, you have a goal of getting to 1 million subscribers or whatever it is, right? And because that's not happening, you start to blame everybody else and blame all the systems and blame God even for not putting you in the place that he, you know, has told you need to be, sort of thing. And so that can be a bit dangerous too, for your relationship with God, for your relationship with your family, with your relationship with your community, like all that kind of stuff. So you have to understand like what matters. But I think on the other end too, it's like, but what about the income? But what if I'm trying to make this my job? And what if the things aren't happening, you know? And how do you deal with that mentality? And I think on YouTube, it's very much a slow game. It's a long play. You know, our friend Mike, during our meeting this last week, said this, and he's like, you know, you have to play the long game of long form content. It's going to take a long time. You have to be ready to wait for it, but it will eventually happen if you're doing things correctly, if you're walking in the right way, and if you're you know, fulfilling your calling there. So, Well,
and even before we started recording today, I think, Eric, you were saying that most podcasts don't get past episode 10.
Right.
And that's an example of like people who don't want to do the long game. They think that they can just do 1 or 2 episodes because they got such a great idea and it's just going to go viral.
Right.
And I was telling you, like, whenever I meet someone who has an idea and they want to start, and they're over analyzing, and I'm like, just start. Don't even have to publish it, but you're going to be like, we're going to be embarrassed with our first couple episodes.
Yeah.
And that's because by doing it, we're learning. We're putting in the reps, we're putting in the inputs, and every single one, hopefully we're getting better. We're going to be more prepared, more smooth in how we're talking, the dynamic, everything. But you gotta start somewhere and just also pick something that you really care about, because it's going to be, when you're doing it, you know, at 11 o'clock at night, you better have a passion for it. Otherwise, it's going to be real easy not to make it to episode 10.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the most important thing? The most important thing that you have to have?
Yeah.
My thinking is I'm leaning in on passion. That at the end of the day, if just starting will really test your passion.
Yes.
Here's a personal example for me. I started my Quiet Time YouTube channel, and I thought maybe one of the experiments, I've done many experiments, was reading the Bible. And I thought I had this great intention of reading every word of the Bible with my music. But I am very passionate about God's word, but I'm not passionate. I felt like I was performing for people, doing this enough. I did it. I committed to it for 3 months, and I realized my passion was waning for it. And sometimes it takes a while to really understand, like, how deep is your passion and will to do this, and your belief, I guess, too, to continue when it just seems like nothing is really resonating with people, you know?
Yeah. Matt, can you talk on this for a second? I have something I need to find in my phone to talk about this.
Yeah, so when you're talking about passion, I think something that complements that is purpose.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be, if you have a bigger goal in the content that you're doing, you know, because you could have a passion about something, but we also know when that passion, let's say it's coffee, but now it's tied to your income and it's work, you could lose the passion for it. Like that is a risk, you know. Like, I've worked in Christian music, and thank the Lord I've not been burned by the music industry where now I'm like, ooh, I don't like Christian music. Like, I've had a good experience, but I know some people who have a bad experience, and now they kind of bristle with, oh, I don't really like that. That was a passion, but then I had a bad experience doing it. So, but I would just go back to, I think, another example. I was talking to someone who works at a radio station, Christian radio station, and they're trying to grow within their digital presence, and they're bringing on a social media person, a social media influencer to do a podcast interviewing Christian artists. And I was kind of pushing back, going, well, does the world just need another interview format? Like, what's the purpose of it? You know, like, what's going to be the unique angle? So you're going to have these Christian artists on, but at the end of the day, when someone finds this content, how's their life going to be different? Like, what's going to be different from your interview from someone else? And ultimately, what is the bigger purpose for it? Because if you have a clear purpose, so I was like, for me personally, my YouTube channel, Salty Christians, like, I'm passionate about meeting people and interviewing. I'm just really naturally curious.
Yeah, you are.
So it's a super fun format for me to go interview a street preacher, to a record label executive, to a graffiti artist. So that's just fun for me. But higher level is, the purpose is, I want, after someone watches one of my videos, to go, oh, I like that testimony. How can I be salt and light in my sphere of influence in my world?
Yeah.
So that's the purpose of it. My passion is the other stuff. So,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was trying to find this because I was going to bring it up during a different recording we're going to do today, but we'll just talk about it now.
Let's go.
Because I think it's interesting. When we talk about your why, or like, I think this is kind of where we're going into, but the input specifically that I would focus on most is the things that you can control. So when we're talking about inputs versus outputs, the things that you can control, I would say you can control how consistent you are. You can control the quality of your own videos. You can control how you respond to things within your community, right? So those are the things that I would think, and your preparation ahead of time.
Yep.
So like those four things I think are probably the most important pieces of control that you have as a content creator, specifically consistency. I've found that on YouTube, it is very difficult to have anything go super well or to build super fast if you're not posting probably more than once a week, to be 100% honest with you. I would like this podcast eventually to be able to do 2 times a week. I think would be so much more sustainable in terms of the algorithm, to be able to put out more and more stuff. Podcasts, though, are longer and people, digest things in over the week or whatever. But I do think that there is room, and there is, in the supply chain, there's room for podcasts to go multiple times a week for sure. My content, it is sometimes 45 minutes, an hour long, but I still post almost daily, right? And because of that consistency, I've become a habitual part of people's routines, right? But I was going to read this from, this is from a post from Think Media, from Sean Cano. And he's posting someone else's list, but I thought it was interesting. Now they're talking specifically about a course and how to find your course sweet spot, but I think it has a lot of applicability to just content creation in general. And so there's 4 quadrants that must align when you think about what you want to be a part of, right, and what you want to be doing. The first one is your knowledge and know-how, so something that you're comfortable with knowledge-wise and that you feel like you're an expert in or an authority in. 2, your audience's challenges or desires, so you understand what your audience's problems are in order to solve them. 3, a profit opportunity, so what will people pay for? What will people be a part of, I would say? So it's not just about profit, but I would say what are people willing to jump into and be a part of? That's why I think GodMade is so powerful, because we're not looking to become millionaires from this, but the idea of this is to build a community that allows us to bring people together to have the biggest amount of impact that we possibly can. And so through that, that is why I think this is such a powerful idea as GodMade, and why I'm all in on it, because having people that are willing to jump in with us is our heart. And I think that we're seeing that even with our group that meets here in Nashville, right? And then the last thing is a topic that lights you up. So that passion piece, right, is a huge part of it as well, because it doesn't matter how good your idea is, doesn't matter how profitable your idea is, if you can only do it for 3 weeks before you burn out.
Yeah.
So
the perfect course or piece of content or content that you're doing, channel, whatever, needs to have some element of all of those 4 quadrants.
Right.
Or it probably won't be a solid kind of stool for you to sit on, and develop content from.
Yeah, and I think to simplify that, I think it looks like it needs to work for you, it needs to work for others, and it needs to solve a problem. I think that's a simplified way of looking at it, right?
And it needs to make money.
And it needs to make money or be sustainable. Yeah, so those 4 things. Yeah, for sure.
That's really good.
Yeah, if you're not able to put food on the table, which really quickly it's going to be a burden.
Yeah,
you know. And again, to your point, like not trying to be a millionaire. Not that it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think Christians quickly go, oh, it's bad to make a ton of money. No, it's not. But if that's your main goal, that's wrong.
To be clear, we do want to make money from this.
Totally.
To be clear, that is a piece of what we're trying to do.
Right.
But it's not the main goal. It's not our main why.
Well, we want it to be sustainable first. First and foremost.
Well, and you mentioned our local Christian creator community here in Nashville. And every night when we get done, so we don't charge. I actually told a creative a couple months ago about it, and he goes, "Oh, are you going to charge before I can come?" We're like, "No, we want this to be open for people." But every time we finish, it's like I'm just charged up. Like when I get home, I'm like, "Oh, like it's like Sunday morning after you hear a great sermon, you're like, all right, I'm on or coming back from summer camp." We get that when we're around other creatives, and just even seeing other people have that aha moment, or have that breakthrough, and that's why one of our visions is for these God-made Christian creator entrepreneur meetups around the country.
Yeah,
and one thing that we've added recently is a time of just prayer and testimony. And it's like 1 week, our friend Sarah, this was 2 months ago, she shared like a big breakthrough for her. I forget if it was monetization or something, but it was like for everybody else in the room, I was like, oh, that's amazing because there is the tough days as a content creator. And so to be able to hear someone else's win is like the extra fuel in the tank to make you go, all right, I'm going to keep on going.
That one in particular was really cool to me because the month before, Sarah had said, and Sarah's awesome. She's like a short form creator.
Yeah. We're going to have her on here.
Oh,
it would be amazing to have Sarah on for sure. But she's a short form creator, does an amazing job at that, doing like silly songs for, adolescents, basically preteens in that area. But she's super, super smart when it comes to short form. She's been doing an amazing job. But the month before, she'd been really struggling and saying like, hey, I'm in a lull. Like she had just had a kid. She was going through this downtime of like, how do I do this? I'm feeling lost. I don't know what to do. But I feel like God is telling me I need to bring somebody on, or I need to figure out how to do this. And everybody in the group's like encouraging her, like, like hire someone, like have someone else help you with this, get some stuff off your plate. And that will help you to, generate more creative juices and all that kind of stuff. And so she's like, oh, okay, but it's really hard to hire. And so she kind of left the group with that. But then the next month she decided, okay, she is going to hire someone. She is going to come in. And then she came in and she had hired someone, and it was like the perfect person, like the perfect person that she had been praying for to be that editor, to step in and be like an assistant for her, and it's been working out well from as far as we can tell. So
that's the power of prayer.
The power of prayer, and bringing it full circle. It's also her taking action.
Yes,
and owning what she can control, the input.
Yeah,
she did that. If she hadn't have taken that step, to do that, she'd still be maybe complaining the next month.
Yeah.
So it's not about being lazy. It's about focusing on what you can input, trusting God, prayerfully moving into what the output might be.
Yeah, and don't blame the algorithm. Don't blame YouTube for not sending out your stuff. Like,
you're not a victim.
Yeah, you're not a victim. If it's not doing well, it's most likely because your stuff sucks. I mean, that's like
it is.
I've had to be realistic about that for my stuff too.
YouTube wants us to succeed. YouTube wants you to succeed. Because let's be honest, the more you succeed, the more ads they can put on your content, the more money that Google can make. The
last 4 years, you know how much money YouTube has paid out to creators? Can you just guess?
It's billions.
150 billion.
It's right around $100 billion that YouTube has paid out to creators.
How much went to Mr. Beast? Good point. There is a long tail of revenue to be earned for sure.
Yeah.
For every creator.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff.
All right, Eric.
Okay, so my topic today that I want to talk about is this is an area that I'm particularly interested in. I'm always curious to see Christians invading the culture or invading the world and impacting it. And so this episode's coming out a few weeks now after the Emmys, but the Emmys happened just last weekend, and it just so happened to be also kind of on the heels of what all that went on with Charlie Kirk. And I was very curious to see how Nate Bargatze, who was the host for this year's Emmys, which that's a very interesting choice too, to have a comedian like Nate, who is kind of known to be a clean comic, is very well liked. He's in this very unique situation that he is very well liked by other comedians, respected by other comedians. I mean, he's good friends with Jimmy Fallon, for example. I listened to the guys from Smartless who had him on recently. He makes the rounds on all the mainstream, television programs, and he is, from what I understand, a committed Christian, and but he's not publicly preaching in any way. But
there's no Bible verse on his Instagram.
Right.
And he's not a John Christ or something.
He's not a John Christ. He's not using kind of Christian content for comedy. He is just taking daily life, and he's very self-deprecating, which I think is what makes him very appealing to people. And he's just a genuine, kind person. And I think that is, one of the best ways that you can be in a position to impact. And so the Emmys, which we all know is full of artistic people, creatives of all spectrums, but I would definitely say that they are, certainly not Christian. It's not a Christian content in that type of show. But I love a lot of the programs that are featured. Like Severance is one of my favorite TV shows.
We just finished it, the second season recently.
Yeah, so it's just a very well made, written show. And so I was very curious. Number one, I wanted to see how many people from Severance were going to win Emmys. But also I wanted to see what Nate was going to do. And did you guys watch the Emmys at all?
I've seen clips, but nothing really.
So I was nervous for Nate because I wasn't sure how it was going to come off. He's so different from the rest of the crowd,
Yeah.
And his shtick, well, he did his famous monologue, which for his opening monologue, he did a version of what he did on SNL twice. He went on Saturday Night Live twice and did this where he was George Washington.
Okay.
And then there were other guys that were part of the troops in the Revolutionary War, and they were talking, in the evening about, the future and the hope. Or George Washington was coming back from the future, and they were asking him, what did you see in the future? And he's like making fun of all these things that they're fighting for, that you're actually fighting for, that we now use inches versus centimeters and things like that, and how silly it is and how dumb it is. So he did a version of that as an opening thing for the Emmys, and I thought that was just great the way he tied that in. And then he did his shtick for the whole Emmys was the Boys and Girls Club. He was going to donate $100,000 to the Boys and Girls Club.
Clip that I saw,
right? And if people stuck to the 45-second speeches, when they accepted their acceptance speeches, then he was going to keep it at $100,000. But if you went over, you would lose money. If you went under, you would put money in.
Oh, interesting.
And the shtick the whole time was like, everybody was so worried about the boys and girls, and he would bring up boys and girls, to make people see the physical, you're hurting this boy and girl, and it just was really, I thought it was really well done. But at first I was like, ooh, people were not loving it. Like, I wasn't sure if people's politics or whatever beliefs were.
There's no world in which he's going to allow them to actually take away a ton of money from the
But
boys
it was
and girls.
by the end, it was like minus $100,000. Like, he was actually joking that he was making money from this whole thing. It was working out great for him. But the very final one obviously was like, no, I'm going to give $250,000 to the Boys and Girls Club no matter what. And so is the Emmys. And it ended up being a really, really sweet kind of way to do it. Again, you're making an impact. You're not preaching the gospel, but you're impacting the Emmys. Yeah. So what do you guys think about people like Nate in this world and the importance of that?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on it. I think it's exciting that there needs to be Christians in culture. There's a book that inspired my YouTube channel called Roaring Lambs, and it was all about, so Bob Reiner wrote this in the late 90s, I guess, and a lot of people in the Christian music world, Nashville, read it. And the whole concept was, instead of complaining about horrible music and messages in music and movies and culture, as Christians, we need to be culture makers. Go make a better movie, go make a better song, make better art that bubbles up to the top and influences culture. But then I know that there's some in the Christian community who'll be like, well, you also got to wear that on your sleeve. You know, whether it's a Christian athlete and you give credit to God at the end of the game at the
like
Super Bowl.
A Tim
Tebow, like you got to be branded Jesus, everything. And I don't think that's the case. I think God calls everyone in different places. So like
Matt says with his pray hat.
I was just going to say his pray hat and his cross on his shirt.
Well, but then I'll go to like a digital marketing conference and I won't wear all this, or I will, and it'll strike up conversation.
Yeah.
That's like a decision that I need to make and go, okay, Lord, am I going to wear that, and will it spark up actual godly conversation or not? And so, like in the case of Nate Bargatze, like, yeah, he isn't a publicly professing, but he's hanging out backstage with culture makers, and who knows what the conversations are in those situations. And so I've got a friend who's written lots of country music hits, and an incredible testimony. And he sits in rooms like this around Nashville writing with the biggest names in country music, and the conversations go towards Jesus because they know he's a Christian, but he's not forcing it. It just happens. And so I think it comes down to a personal conviction of, am I, and the last thing I'll say, I had actually interviewed a pastor on my YouTube channel about this because I'm into sports and I love sports, and and after a big game, whatever sport it is, whenever the coach or players give a shout out to the man upstairs, it goes viral on Christian social media, right? Like, woohoo, he's
Scotty
on our team.
Scheffler, in golf.
Exactly.
As well.
And we love that. And I think that's great. I mean, Tim Tebow's he's the poster boy of that.
Right.
The one thing that this pastor cautioned was, he said, the alternative is, you wear that on your sleeve and you're saying, go Jesus, but then your life doesn't line up with it. Yeah. And so publicly you're giving a shout out to Jesus after you've done the game-winning home run or touchdown, but then in your private life, that doesn't line up. And so that's the alternative also, is like, I don't want someone saying they're part of Team Jesus if they are really not.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really follow a ton of this stuff too much, so it's hard for me to say. But I do, in terms of Christians in the environment of like Hollywood or whatever else, I definitely have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, what do you have to say about that?
Coming from a biblical realm, biblical media realm, right? Okay, I gotta be careful what I say here because I don't want to be too mean or anything. But okay, so let's take the Charlie Kirk situation, for example, right? There are a lot of people in the biblical media realm, whether they're actors or crew members or whatever, that are very much not Christian, very much dislike Charlie Kirk. And I think for the most part, I don't know if the directors and people that are on set or other people that are around them gave them, advice like hey, just be careful, like don't join all these other people or whatever. For the most part, I didn't see anything. I didn't see any like comments or anything. I didn't see any like negativity, things like that. But there were a few. And so there are a few crew members or cast members or different people that kind of spoke up, and they weren't like necessarily cheering on the violence or anything like that, but you could definitely tell they were holding their tongue and trying to be as open and coy about it as they can. Right? Yeah. But there was a few that I was really impressed by as well. People that I know aren't fully religious, people that are just in the Hollywood system that are actors or whatever else, that had sort of measured and way better sort of responses, even condemning some of the hatred and some other things that were happening. But when it comes to Christians in that space, it's been very cool to see because you have people like Dallas Jenkins, who is very, like normal evangelical Christian dude, right? Has been doing a lot of research, obviously, for The Chosen and all the other projects that he's done over the years, but he's not like some like pastor or like crazy theologian or anything like that. But the conversations and the relationships that he has, everybody loves him. There's not an actor or a crew member who's like, I really don't like working with Dallas Jenkins. Right. Everybody that he's ever worked with on the set of The Chosen or whatever else he's working on has absolutely loved him, has absolutely fallen in love with him, and had a great relationship with him and his wife, and they're over there having dinner and like, hanging out with him and different things like that. Because he's just a really chill, amazing guy who, when you talk to him, gives you his absolute full attention.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Unlike almost anybody that I've ever met. Like it's really impressive the way that his brain works, the way that he communicates. So being around people like that, being around people like John Irwin, being around people like what's the pastor's name from Jesus Revolution? Not Chuck Smith, but the one that's alive, Greg Laurie.
Greg Laurie.
Yeah, Greg Laurie. Like being around people like that on set, right? Changes a lot of people's perspective. So I've heard dozens and dozens of stories of people who have come to Christ, coming from the place of, I don't like Christianity, I don't want to be a part of it, but because they're working in these environments, have come to Christ and have completely changed their lives.
Well, we were talking on the car ride on the way over here about what really is exciting is the kind of conversations they're having behind the scenes, backstage, one-on-one, the things that are not a performance, that are not ever going to be seen by any camera.
Yeah.
That's the kind of impact that Dallas Jenkins being the way he is can have on our culture.
Yeah.
And so I get just as excited about that stuff, more excited about the potential of the conversations that go on behind the scenes. But another person in the music industry that I was really blown away by, to be honest, was Lauren Daigle. She is starting a 5-day, I think, prayer and fasting, kind of in a response to all that's gone on in the last week or so around Charlie Kirk. But it's way more than that. I think if we all can just recommit to walking with Jesus a little bit deeper, maybe getting into Scripture a little bit more, and being aware of the impact we make as creators who happen to be believers.
Right.
I think we can really do a lot of, and then we can trust God for the outcome.
Yeah.
And we can make an impact.
Well, and there's discernment and conviction, and everyone's is different. And I'll just bring up 2 YouTubers who don't have Christian YouTube channels. There's not a Bible verse on it, is Sean Cannell, Think Media. Yeah. But he naturally weaves in his faith.
He is such
actually, he forces it almost more now. Not in a bad way. He used to weave it in more subtly, but now it's like, it's out there. Like, I'm a Christian, which is awesome.
I love Sean to death. He just reminds me so much of like the 2001 youth pastor of like you got to rise and grind. Like he's like, there's so many things that he'll say that are like just those like one-liner like youth pastor.
We're gonna tag him in this clip.
Yes, yeah.
Well, but then another one, a guy that we all know here, Sean, Bikes and Beards, and this is a channel for dudes. If you like bikes, you like it.
If you like beards, you like it.
If you like beards, not beards. And and I've only watched a few of his videos, but in like every other one or so, there's just a subtle little reference. Oh, in the book of Proverbs, it says this.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, some people might think it's forced, but for him, it's not. And that's planting a seed. Like, is there a revival because he said that in his video that got a couple million views? No, but there might be a couple people on the other end watching that video go, I'm going to open up my Bible and see what that says. Or, I respect the content that he does. He's crushing it on YouTube. He's a Christian? Cool. So I think there is no, you've got to follow this formula to be a Christian creator or a Christian who is a creator of Christian content. It's the individual conviction for everybody. Mm-hmm. And that may change, so.
Yeah, I think going back to the original idea, that the idea that someone like that is in place of someone who would come in and wear a devil costume during a performance or starts cussing every other word or things like that. It's way better, right?
It is.
Well, and if he had been faith forward on all of his social media, he would never have been invited to be there.
Right.
No.
And so instead the narrative would be, oh my goodness, I can't believe that such and such person was wearing a devil costume on the Emmys.
Right.
Now it's like, oh, he was doing these funny bits. Yeah. Like, at least there was some wholesome stuff.
There was,
the Emmys, right?
Wholesome stuff that impacts the culture. Yeah. And I say, definitely, it's quite a weight to carry. We need to be praying. I subscribe to the Hollywood Prayer Network. We need to be praying for our actors and our community
culture makers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's I'm inspired by people like the Hollywood Prayer Network that send out a regular weekly newsletter talking about all the events and happenings that Christians, believers want to hear about, local groups, etc. I think we need to be praying for our culture makers. Yeah. That's a big takeaway.
And we need more Christian culture makers to step up.
We do.
Yeah. Which is what this channel is all about. If you guys want to see more behind the scenes stuff, if you want to learn more from us, if you want to have direct access to us to ask about how to become a content creator, how to do this thing, and how to continue to be a great Christian creator, then this is the place for you. GodMade is your community. We want you to be a part of it. Whether you're a paid member or whether you're just part of this, watching this right here, leave us a comment. Reach out to us on Instagram. Join the movement over at GodMadeCreators.com. And we'd love to see more of you. So, yeah, thanks for watching.